Have you ever questioned why some women who don't have dazzling looks or picture-perfect lives on social media somehow manage to deeply captivate men that most would consider far out of their league? What is it that they carry? Something invisible, yet irresistible, that makes men's attention linger long after they've walked away. What secret energy do they possess that you might not have uncovered yet? The truth, though revealing, doesn't live in the surface. It isn't hidden behind makeup, tight dresses, or hours spent rehearsing seductive smiles in front of a mirror. No, it's something far more subtle, something Carl Jung understood with striking clarity. True feminine power doesn't bloom from external perfection. It radiates from emotional intelligence, from the sacred art of touching a man's soul before ever touching his body. And once you understand that, everything changes. Because when you stop chasing love through appearances and start embodying emotional connection, you cross the threshold from ordinary to unforgettable. Many women have been taught since childhood that to make a man fall, they must become what he desires to see. That love is something to be earned through beauty, patience, or performance. But that's not love. It's illusion. Real connection is born not from what he sees, but from what he feels when he's near you. You see, a man can desire many women, but the one he remembers, the one he keeps replaying in his mind, is the one who spoke to his inner world, not to his ego, but to the deeper, quieter part of him that rarely finds peace. You might think the center of his longing is his body, but that's only the doorway. The real core, the one he guards most fiercely, is his mind, his thoughts, his fears, his hopes, his contradictions. That's the place you must learn to reach, because within his mind lives the battlefield of his insecurities and ambitions, the vault of his childhood wounds and silent desires. Most women never enter that space because it requires more than beauty. It requires emotional fluency, patience, and presence. But when you learn how to navigate his inner world, something powerful happens. He begins to feel seen in ways he's never experienced before. And from that feeling, devotion is born. Carl Jung often said that to change what we attract, we must first transform the energy we project. This isn't just a spiritual idea. It's psychological truth. A man's attention can be caught easily, but his soul only responds to resonance. You can light up his eyes for a night, but to live in his thoughts, you must awaken something within him that feels both safe and electric. Let me tell you a secret few ever articulate. A man can give his body to many, but he opens his heart only to the one who touches something beyond his surface. That's why, after an intense connection, he may not recall every detail of what you did, but he will never forget how you made him feel. That, my dear, is real power. The kind that no other woman can imitate. If you've ever found yourself giving everything, trying to do things right, and still feeling unseen or unappreciated, you're not broken. You simply started from the wrong place. You tried to win love through the physical, instead of awakening it through the emotional. To truly captivate a man, you must begin where his defenses end, inside his mind. Because the truth is, the mind is where real desire is born. It's where fantasies take shape, where admiration turns into curiosity, and curiosity into longing. When you touch that realm, his body follows effortlessly. When you connect to that invisible current, you no longer compete, you attract. Think about it. Anyone can capture his attention for a fleeting moment, but only the woman who stimulates his imagination, who plays with the subtleties of emotion and mystery, will stay in his memory long after she's gone. There's an ancient kind of alchemy in this. It's not about control or manipulation. It's about awareness. When you understand how his mental and emotional worlds intertwine, you begin to move differently, speak differently, feel differently. You no longer chase, you resonate. You no longer wait, you attract. And this is the essence of Jung's teaching. What we emit energetically is always mirrored back to us. When you learn to give your attention instead of your anxiety, to offer presence instead of pressure, you shift the dynamic completely. You're no longer the woman waiting to be chosen. You become the one he cannot stop thinking about, the one who quietly unsettles his soul without ever trying. So, where does it all begin? It begins in the invisible, in learning to communicate without needing to explain, to create anticipation without revealing everything. The male mind, like the female one, craves mystery. It's the unknown that draws him in, the pauses, the silences, the subtlety. Let him wonder. Let him imagine. Because when he begins to imagine you, you've already entered his world. Remember, a man doesn't fall in love with what he sees. He falls in love with what he feels when he's around you. So don't rush to impress, move to evoke. The look that lingers a second too long, the pause between words, the quiet confidence that tells him you're not waiting for his validation. That's what keeps him awake at night, trying to decode what you never had to say. Touch his mind first, and his body will follow naturally. While most women spend their energy trying to perfect the visible, the hair, the skin, the smile, the truly magnetic woman masters the invisible. She doesn't chase attention. She commands it quietly, without effort. Because she knows that the deepest attraction begins not with sight, but with perception. A woman who understands a man's inner world doesn't need to seduce. She awakens. She doesn't seek validation. She evokes emotion. The truth is, when you reach a man's emotional core, you bypass everything superficial. You speak directly to the part of him that doesn't wear armor. And that, my dear, is where transformation happens. Because a man's body can be touched by many hands, but his mind only opens to the one who makes him feel something he cannot explain. Carl Jung believed that what we repress eventually controls us from the shadows, and most men live exactly that way, trapped between what they show and what they secretly crave to express. When you learn how to navigate that shadowed territory, not to fix it, but to understand it, you become unforgettable. Not because you did something dramatic, but because you made him feel seen without judgment. You entered a place few have ever dared to go. Let me tell you a quiet truth. Men remember the women who awaken their imagination, not the ones who overwhelm their senses. They remember the glance that carried a question, the silence that spoke louder than words, the subtle tone that stirred something raw inside them. That's the difference between being noticed and being remembered. Anyone can make him look, but only one can make him long. The secret isn't in revealing everything. It's in what you leave unspoken, in what you let him wonder about. The male psyche thrives on discovery. When everything is handed to him, there's no mystery left to chase. But when you let him feel like he's slowly uncovering your world, layer by layer, his curiosity turns into desire, and that desire becomes attachment. Play with the unseen. Speak in half-tones, not full declarations. Let your words paint emotions instead of explanations. A single, well-placed phrase can linger longer than hours of conversation. Say something that invites him to imagine, to complete the story in his own mind. Because once his imagination becomes involved, you're no longer a passing thought. You're a living story inside him. Jung often said that everything we experience is filtered through perception, and that means the way you make him perceive you matters more than what you actually say or do. If he senses serenity in your presence, he feels safe. If he feels curiosity, he becomes drawn. If he feels admiration, he opens. The alchemy of attraction isn't about performing, it's about being. Let's go deeper. If you only touch the surface of a man, the reaction you'll get will also be surface level, predictable, short-lived, and eventually dull. But if you dare to reach the parts of him that feel unseen, his doubts, his dreams, his quiet fears, you awaken something sacred. Because every man, no matter how confident he seems, carries a longing to be understood. And when he feels that from you, something shifts permanently inside him. It's not about power. It's about presence. When a woman becomes fully present, with her words, her gaze, her silence, she radiates a frequency that pulls him in. It's not loud. It's not aggressive. It's calm, steady, magnetic. The kind of energy that doesn't demand attention but naturally receives it. Because emotional depth always draws more powerfully than physical attraction. Imagine this. You're sitting with him, and instead of filling every pause with small talk, you let silence breathe between you. You meet his eyes, not to search for approval, but to simply see him. In that moment, he feels something he can't name. A strange calm, mixed with anticipation. You've entered his psychological space without force. You've touched something invisible. And that's exactly why he can't stop thinking about you. This is what Carl Jung referred to as the language of the unconscious, the communication that happens beneath words. When your energy says, "I am not here to impress you, I am here to understand you," he begins to lower his defenses. He becomes vulnerable in ways he doesn't even understand. And from that vulnerability, connection is born. Most women rush. They confuse intensity with intimacy. But a truly magnetic woman understands that desire grows in stillness, in mystery, in the slow unraveling of two souls. She knows that anticipation is far more powerful than immediacy, because the longer you let him wonder, the deeper his fascination grows. Remember this: you don't have to be the loudest in the room to be remembered. You only have to be the most present. The woman who touches his mind doesn't compete for attention. She doesn't follow trends. She doesn't need to be seen to feel validated. She knows that her energy, when grounded, when confident, when authentic, speaks louder than any words ever could. She's the one he keeps replaying in his thoughts long after she's gone. The one who feels like home and mystery all at once. And that's the paradox of real attraction. It's not about giving everything. It's about leaving traces. The sound of your laughter, the weight of your silence, the warmth of your voice when you said his name in a way no one else did. Those are the things that stay, that echo, that haunt. So if you've ever wondered how to reach that level of connection, the kind that doesn't fade when you're not around, start here. Stop trying to prove your worth. Start showing your depth. Because the moment you stop chasing attention, you begin to command it. The moment you stop performing, you start being. And when you're fully being, authentic, grounded, open, he will feel it. Not because you forced him to, but because your energy speaks directly to the part of him that words can't reach. Touch his mind. Stir his imagination. Let him feel seen without you saying a word. That's where desire begins. That's where surrender happens. There is a powerful truth that few dare to embrace, because it challenges everything we've been conditioned to believe about attraction. We've been told to start with the body, to use beauty as a weapon and charm as currency. But when you live by that script, you keep yourself trapped on the surface where everything fades. The women who truly stay in a man's heart play by different rules. They know that desire isn't something you chase, it's something you awaken, and it begins not in the skin, but in the mind. A man's body might respond to anyone, but his mind only responds to someone who touches it with intention, because within his thoughts lies the seat of his emotions, his fears, his ambitions, and his unspoken longings. When you learn to move within that space, to speak the emotional language that stirs his imagination, you unlock the part of him that rarely opens to anyone. That's the level where real intimacy begins, the kind that binds him to you without a single promise spoken. Carl Jung often spoke of energy as communication, the vibration beneath our words that speaks directly to the unconscious. When you shift your energy from seeking to radiating, from insecurity to self-possession, the dynamic reverses. You stop asking, "Does he like me?" And instead, he starts wondering, "Who is she? What is it about her that I can't let go of?" Let me share something that only the most emotionally attuned women ever master. There are 3 subtle tools that can open the male mind and stir the soul. They aren't manipulative tricks, they're psychological keys, and once you know how to use them, they make you unforgettable. The first tool is the power of suggestive language. Most people speak to be understood, but a woman who understands the art of emotional influence speaks to be felt. Her words aren't explanations, they're invitations. She doesn't declare, she implies. She doesn't reveal everything, she paints possibilities. When you speak in images instead of statements, his imagination begins to build a world around you. For example, instead of saying, "I miss you," say something like, "I keep catching myself thinking about that moment, the one I shouldn't." You see the difference? You didn't give him a conclusion. You gave him a mystery. His mind immediately begins to fill in the blanks, and with every thought, he's tying you deeper into his inner world. That's what Jung called psychic projection, the act of imprinting emotion into another person's imagination through subtle cues. It's not about words, it's about what those words ignite. The best sentences don't end, they echo. They leave him wondering long after the conversation ends. The second tool is strategic silence. Silence is often misunderstood as absence, but in truth, it's presence intensified. Most people fear silence because it forces truth to surface. But when used with confidence, silence becomes one of the most magnetic forms of communication. Imagine this. He says something flirtatious, expecting your quick reply. Instead, you smile gently and say nothing. You hold his gaze for a moment, then shift it away with calm ease. That moment, small as it is, creates tension. His mind races. He starts replaying it, wondering what you meant, what you felt, what you didn't say. Carl Jung once wrote that the unspoken carries its own language. Silence invites projection. It lets his own emotions rush in to fill the space. And when a man projects his curiosity onto you, he deepens his investment without even realizing it. So learn to savor silence. Let it breathe between your words. Let it soften your presence with mystery. Because the woman who can hold silence comfortably is the one who seems to hold power effortlessly. The third tool, the one that truly separates the unforgettable from the ordinary, is the art of almost. This is where emotional mastery meets self-control. The almost is the moment that doesn't quite happen. The kiss that lingers on the edge. The touch that hovers, then retreats. The story you begin, but never finish. It's the cliffhanger that leaves his mind spinning. Why does it work? Because the human psyche craves closure. And when you don't give it, his mind keeps replaying the moment, seeking the missing piece. You've left a question open, and his imagination rushes to answer it. That's the hook that no physical gesture can compete with. Picture this. He leans in, expecting you to yield. Instead, you whisper, "Not yet," and pull away with a smile that promises everything and nothing at once. That moment becomes immortal in his mind. It's the almost that feeds his desire far longer than satisfaction ever could, because satisfaction ends a story, but almost begins 1,000 new ones. This isn't manipulation, it's rhythm. The dance between presence and distance, revelation and restraint. It's the natural pulse of attraction when guided by emotional awareness. And once you learn this rhythm, you no longer chase, you lead. Jung believed that the soul speaks in symbols and contrasts. Light needs shadow. Passion needs pause. Revelation needs mystery. That's the secret most never understand. You don't need to show more to be desired. You need to reveal less, but with purpose. These 3 tools, the suggestive word, the pregnant silence, and the art of almost, don't just create attraction, they create depth. They turn interaction into memory, and memory into meaning. They awaken not just the man's body, but his unconscious, the part of him that hungers for emotional intimacy, but doesn't know how to ask for it. But here's the truth. These tools only work when they come from authenticity. You can't fake emotional presence. You can't mimic confidence. You must become it. That's why your work doesn't begin with him. It begins with you. Before you can awaken anyone else's emotions, you must first awaken your own. You must know your value so deeply that silence doesn't scare you, that mystery doesn't feel like a game, and that restraint doesn't feel like loss. Because once you master that energy, once you embody calm magnetism, something extraordinary happens. You stop chasing love, and love begins to find you. Men respond differently. Situations shift. You no longer attract confusion or inconsistency. You attract clarity, devotion, and respect. And that is what Carl Jung meant when he said, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate." Once you become aware of the energy you carry, you stop living by fate. You begin to live by design. Once you begin to live from that place of inner awareness, everything changes. Not just the way men respond to you, but the way you respond to life itself. You stop playing the endless game of performance, of seeking to be enough. Instead, you start radiating a quiet certainty that says, "I already am." And that energy, calm, centered, unbothered, is irresistible. Because what truly captures a man's heart isn't perfection. It's peace. It's the feeling he gets when he's around you. The sense that he can exhale, that he doesn't have to perform, that he's safe to be real. That's something he doesn't even understand consciously, but his soul recognizes it instantly. And once he feels that, he can't go back to shallow connections. This is what most people miss about attraction. It's not just emotional, it's energetic. When your energy says, "I am complete," you become a mirror for his own incompleteness. You awaken in him both desire and reverence. He respects you because you're not chasing him. You're grounded in your essence. You're not trying to fill a void. You're embodying wholeness. Carl Jung wrote that love is the meeting of 2 souls that recognize the divine in one another. But that recognition can only happen when you've already seen the divine within yourself. You can't offer depth from emptiness. You can't give love from fear. You must first anchor yourself in your own worth. Because the woman who knows her worth moves differently. She listens differently, loves differently, exists differently. When she walks into a room, the air subtly shifts. When she speaks, people feel it, not because she's loud, but because her presence carries weight. She doesn't need to prove anything, and that absence of need creates a powerful gravitational pull. Men feel drawn to her, not because she flatters their ego, but because she awakens their spirit. So if you want to touch a man's soul, you must begin by returning to your own. That's where your true power lives. Not in control, not in strategy, but in emotional clarity. You no longer need to convince anyone to choose you, because you've already chosen yourself. Think about it. A man can be fascinated by beauty, but he's transformed by peace. He can be addicted to excitement, but he's devoted to authenticity. You can play the game of attraction, or you can rise above it entirely by embodying something far more enduring. The kind of woman who doesn't chase love, but invites it home. That's the paradox Jung understood so well. When you stop trying to possess, you begin to attract effortlessly. The energy of grasping repels. The energy of being magnetizes. Love that's forced fades quickly, but love that's felt deeply, silently, organically, endures. So when you're with him, don't seek to impress. Seek to perceive. Observe how he moves, how he hides his emotions behind logic, how his voice changes when he feels vulnerable. Don't rush to fill his silence. Listen to it. Within that silence, you'll find the language of his heart. And when you speak, let your words carry intention. Don't speak to please. Speak to connect. Don't respond to be accepted. Respond because you feel. That's how you shift from reacting to resonating. When you begin to live this way, you realize something liberating. You don't need to be chosen by anyone to feel valuable. Your worth isn't in how someone reacts to you. It's in how deeply you remain anchored in yourself while loving freely. That's why real magnetism is not about being wanted. It's about being remembered. It's not about how many people look at you, it's about how many hearts you quietly move. You don't chase the spotlight, you become the light. And that kind of woman doesn't fade from memory, she lives in it. So if you ever doubt your power, remember this: a woman who knows how to touch a man's mind doesn't need to touch his body to be desired. Her energy lingers, her words echo. Her silence stays. She becomes a presence that feels almost spiritual because she's not offering attention. She's offering awareness. And awareness is the highest form of love. Carl Jung once said, "The meeting of two personalities is like the contact of two chemical substances. If there is any reaction, both are transformed." That is the essence of what you're capable of. You're not here to entertain him. You're here to transform him through understanding, through presence, through energy. But remember, that transformation begins with you. Before you can touch anyone else's soul, you must first honor your own. You must look at yourself not as someone waiting to be loved, but as someone born to embody love. Because the moment you stop trying to prove your value and start living from it, you become untouchable in the most beautiful way. That's what makes a woman unforgettable. Not the way she looks, but the way she feels. The way she listens with her whole being. The way her calm disarms and her mystery invites. The way she makes a man question everything he thought he knew about connection. And that, my dear, is the real seduction, the kind that Carl Jung understood. When you stop seeking to possess, you start to awaken. When you stop playing roles, you start to reveal truth. And that truth, expressed through your energy, becomes your power. So the next time you find yourself with a man, don't ask, "Does he like me?" Ask instead, "Am I being fully myself?" Don't ask, "What can I do to make him stay?" Ask, "What am I offering that's real, that's felt, that's mine?" Because the woman who lives from authenticity doesn't fear loss. She knows that anything meant for her will recognize her energy and stay. Let that be your new language of connection, the language of presence, mystery, and self-worth. And as you walk through this world, remember, you are not here to chase, to compete, or to impress. You are here to awaken, to remind others of the depth, the softness, and the fire that coexist within you. Because once you become the woman who knows how to touch a man's mind, you'll realize you no longer need to shout to be heard or fight to be seen. Your very being becomes the message. Your silence speaks, your energy leads, and your presence is unforgettable. And if these words stirred something inside you, if they made you pause, breathe, or remember your own power, then this moment was meant for you. Because what you're feeling right now isn't just inspiration, it's recognition. It's your soul remembering what it already knew. You were never meant to chase love. You were meant to become it. So take this truth and carry it quietly within you. Let it change the way you walk into a room, the way you speak, the way you look at yourself in the mirror. Let it remind you that the world doesn't respond to your appearance. It responds to your energy. The moment you choose yourself, the world will too. If this message reached your heart, don't let it fade. Share it. Leave a trace. Let others feel what you just felt. And if you want to keep walking this path of emotional mastery and spiritual connection, subscribe to Heartsync X and stay close, because what's coming next will take you even deeper. Until then, stay magnetic, stay grounded, and never forget, the most powerful touch is the one that reaches the soul.